Hello, Greenstylers. Cynthia here, and I'm very excited to welcome you to the Sundance Jacket sewing tutorial. The Sundance Jacket is a beautiful jacket designed to be made out of knit fabric, medium to heavy weight, with at least 25% stretch. You'll need between 1.5 to 2.5 yards of fabric to make the Sundance. To make the long sleeve version shown here, you'll need 2 yards of fabric. The options you'll see in this video are the stand-up collar, hemmed long sleeves, pleated back, and square pocket. Let's take a look at the pieces you'll need to cut to make your Sundance. First, you'll need to cut the front piece. Cut 2 as mirror images, and there's a notch on the side seam that you'll want to mark as well. Next up is the back piece. If you're making the pleated version like I am, you'll only cut this top portion. In addition, there's a notch at the center back. Go ahead and cut those out as well. If you're making the non-pleated version, you'll cut the full back piece all the way down to the bottom. If you're making the pleated version, you'll cut this bottom panel, also called the under panel, separately. This is just the bottom part of the back piece. There are notches to mark, and make sure that you cut the correct bottom line on this piece. Cut 2 side back pieces as mirror images. There are 2 notches on each of these pieces. In addition, you'll want to mark the pocket placement on these pieces, which is not shown here, but you can copy it straight off of your pattern piece. Cut 2 side front pieces as mirror images as well. This piece has 3 notches on each, and you'll want to mark the pocket placement on these pieces as well. You'll cut 2 of the shoulder yoke. This piece has a double notch up on top, and you may want to make a note of which is the neckline edge. It's the inside edge as shown here. You want to mark or remember that for when you attach this piece to your jacket. The back yoke is this cool looking piece with a double notch on top. Cut 2 as mirror images of each other. The bottom of the Sundance jacket is finished with a hem facing. You'll need to cut 1 of the back hem facing and 2 of the front hem facing as mirror images. Be sure to cut those notches on the hem facing so that you know which end of the front hem facing attaches to the back. The zipper facing adds a really nice finish to the front zipper of your jacket. If your fabric is not very stable, I do recommend adding interfacing to this piece. Cut 2 of the optional sleeves as mirror images of each other. And make sure to mark that front notch. Your jacket will have 2 zippered pockets, and each of those pockets will be made up of 1 back pocket piece and 1 front pocket piece. So you'll want to cut 2 back pocket pieces as mirror images and make sure to mark those pocket alignment marks. And you'll want 2 front pocket pieces also cut as mirror images and mark those pocket alignment markings as well. I made sure to mark my 2 pocket pieces because they look so similar to each other, with a little piece of fabric marked F for the front pieces and B for the back pieces. For this version, you'll need 1 stand-up collar piece. Make sure to mark that center point, and I do recommend adding interfacing if this piece is not very stable. And finally, you'll need 1 pleated back piece. Make sure to transfer those pleat markings onto your fabric. Now let's get started by creating that beautiful pleated back piece. We'll start by hemming 1 inch. You can easily do that by drawing a line 2 inches from the raw edge and folding the raw edge up to that line toward the back or wrong side of the fabric. That will create a perfect 1 inch hem. And then you'll top stitch it using your cover stitch, twin needle, or even a lengthened straight stitch on your sewing machine. Now that the bottom is hemmed, We'll start creating those lovely pleats along the top edge of this piece. I'll flip the piece over so it's easier to work with, and we'll find the center 2 pleat lines, mark them with pins, grasp one of the pins and pull it over to the next pleat marking along the top edge. The pin just helps you to align the 2 pleat markings together. Once you've aligned them, then you can pull the pin out and use it to hold those 2 pleat lines together. Repeat for the pleat marking that we marked on the other side, and this time we're going to go in the opposite direction. Now here's how our first pleat looks from the right side and from the wrong side. You have the 2 folds of fabric right in the center. You can put a couple of more pins to hold those in place. Now we'll repeat this process for the remaining pleat markings, doing one set at a time. Now here's how our beautiful pleats look from the right side, and here's how they look from the wrong side. Use some additional pins to hold those pleats in place on the wrong side, and then once those are done, we'll take it over to the sewing machine and baste along that top edge. At this point, I've used additional pins to hold both edges of the pleats in place. I'll switch my sewing machine over to a basting stitch, which is the straight stitch with the longest stitch length, and carefully baste all of those in place. Absolutely gorgeous. Give those pleats a press and we'll move on to the back piece. Here is the top and the bottom of the back. With right sides together, align the 2 back pieces at that long center edge and do the same for the back under panel pieces. Stitch both using a serger or a stretch stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Top stitch the back piece if you desire, and you can even top stitch the under panel if you'd like. The main reason to do that would just be to flatten that seam, as it won't be visible. I made sure to push the seams in opposite directions of each other so that they can nest and make that seam just a little less bulky when I add the pleat. Now with the under panel face up, we'll place the pleats also facing up on top of the under panel. Pin along the sides and top. You'll find the under panel to be just a little bit longer than the pleats on the sides, and that is correct. It is necessary for when you attach the facing onto the bottom of the jacket. Now we will baste those 3 edges that we just pinned. Now we'll pin and stitch the top back piece together with our new pleated bottom back piece. To stitch these pieces together, I actually recommend using the sewing machine because it's become quite a thick seam right now. Number 6, the lightning bolt stitch, is a great option. I will be using stitch number 8, which is the zigzag stitch, but I don't necessarily recommend that stitch. The reason I'm using it is because this is actually my first time making the Sundance, and I might want to make a sway back adjustment in the back, so I want the seam a little bit easier to unpick. If you'd like to top stitch this seam, press your seam upward and then top stitch using your cover stitch, twin needle, or zigzag stitch. Now it's time for the side back pieces. We'll align the side back pieces just like so with the center back, place them right sides together, and pin in place. Remember that when you're pinning a curve, you're not aligning the raw edges, you're actually aligning the fabric along that 3/8 inch seam allowance. So I like to pinch right along the seam allowance in order to line up the two pieces of fabric and then add my pin. You'll also notice that the notches on the side back and the center back will not align together if you are doing the pleated version. Stitch both seams using a stretch stitch or serger in a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Press the seams in toward the center back in order to top stitch. Pin and stitch that tiny center seam of the back yoke pieces. Use a straight stitch or your serger in a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And here it is stitched together and that seam is nicely pressed open. Place the back yoke and the back piece on your table, both facing up just like so, and then you'll flip the back yoke down onto the back piece, and we are going to pin that curvy seam to attach them together. Start by matching up the back center seams, and again, remember when you're pinning a curve that you are aligning the two pieces at the 3/8 inch seam allowance, not at the edges of the fabric. Use lots of pins, and when you're done, you'll stitch them together using a serger or a stretch stitch and a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Press the seam up toward the yoke in order to top stitch. This is the notch on the side back piece side seam. I'm marking it with chalk because I'm about to finish those edges using my serger, and I'm going to serge those notches right off. So here you can see the notch is gone, but I can still see where it was with my chalk marking. Now finish the side seam edges of the side front pieces in the same manner. Here are my side front pieces, and the side seam edge is the one with the arm side curve. I'm going to mark those notches in the same way that I did for the side back pieces. Bring your back piece and those side front pieces over to the table and lay them with right sides up. And you are going to flip the side front pieces onto the back with right sides together. You'll be using those pocket placement marks, so make sure you've transferred those over for this step. Pin in a way that will remind you to stop stitching at those pocket openings. I am using a method of using a different type of pin. So I'm using some straight pins to mark those pocket placements and then clips for the part that I'll be stitching. So we'll be stitching from the bottom of the arm side down to the straight pin or the pocket placement mark, and then start again at the pocket placement mark down to the very bottom. If your fabric has no vertical stretch like mine, then you can use a straight stitch for this seam. If your fabric does have vertical stretch though, you do want to use a stretch stitch such as the lightning bolt or the triple straight stitch. Stitch from the edge of the fabric to the first pocket placement marking. Make sure to back stitch to secure your stitch. Then begin stitching again at the other pocket placement marking to the other end of the fabric. Iron those seams open all the way from the top to the bottom, including the pocket opening area. If your zipper is longer than 6 inches, you'll need to shorten it, and here's how you do so. Measure from the very top of the zipper teeth down 6 inches and make a mark so you know exactly where that is on your zipper tape. You're going to use your sewing machine and a zigzag stitch. I've widened mine to 7 millimeters. And what you want to do is lower your feed dogs so that the tape stays right in place as you zigzag back and forth over it. Center your zipper teeth right under the needle, and you are going to use your hand crank to go back and forth a few times because you want to make sure that you're going to the left and the right of the teeth. You don't want your needle to hit in the middle of your teeth. Zigzag back and forth several times, and then it'll look just like this, and you have now created a new zipper stop. You can use a hand needle to pull those threads through to the back and then knot them. Cut off the excess zipper tape about a 1/2 inch to up to 1 inch below your new zipper stop. And now your zipper is a perfect 6-inch zipper. Lay your jacket with wrong side facing up on your work table and find that zipper opening. You should have already ironed that seam open so that it looks like this and is ready for the zipper. Begin by attaching some wash-away adhesive tape to the seam. Place the zipper face down into the opening and make sure the top of the zipper is at the top of the opening. You want the very top of the teeth to line up right at the very top of that opening and press the zipper tape against that adhesive. Check to make sure the zipper looks good from the right side of the fabric, and then you can add a couple of clips or pins for added security. Use a straight stitch for all of the zipper installation steps. We'll begin by stitching the zipper tape to the seam allowance only. We want to make sure that we're only stitching through the seam allowance and not the front of the jacket. No stitches will be showing on the front of the jacket. Use your zipper foot and stitch close to the teeth. Now with the jacket still open to the wrong side facing up, we're going to bring over one of the front pockets. Lay that front pocket against the edge of the zipper allowance just like so. Notice that the pocket is going over the zipper. We're going to stitch it in place. Again, we're not stitching through the front of the jacket, so we'll be stitching through that zipper allowance, the zipper tape, and the pocket piece. And here's how it looks from the top of the pocket. And then when we flip the pocket open to reveal the wrong side of the zipper, it will look like that. Notice on the front, there are no stitches showing. Now we'll bring over the back pocket pieces. Remember that the wider part of the pocket is at the bottom. We'll be laying the back pocket piece right on top of that front pocket piece and aligning the edge with the edge of that zipper tape. This back side piece needs to be pulled out of the way so that it does not get stitched into the pocket. So lay your back piece right on top of the front piece and pin it to that zipper allowance. When you're stitching these pocket pieces to the zipper allowance, you don't need to stitch exactly against the teeth. I like to stitch just a little bit away from the teeth, but still make sure there's some space between my stitch and the raw edge. because now we're going to understitch that pocket to that zipper allowance. What we need to do is pull the pockets open. We're still looking at the wrong side of the zipper, and we're going to stitch right along this edge, right along the edge where you fold the pocket back, and that will keep the pocket from trying to come out of the zipper or getting caught in the zipper when you're opening and closing. But you're going to stitch again just to this allowance. You're not going to be stitching through the front of the fabric. So we're going to pull the front of the jacket away, out of the way. We're going to be stitching through that pocket, and underneath the pocket, which you can't see, is just that allowance. So I'm just being careful to make sure I stitch only through the allowance and the pocket. So that was the front pocket piece, and now we'll do the same for the back pocket piece. You may notice that these stitch lines are looking a little bit messy, and typically I would redo that and have my face right up close into the sewing machine, but I'm leaning back for the camera. If you find that these stitches are looking a little messy for you, the good thing is that these all happen on the inside of the zipper, so you wouldn't even have to restitch them. The important part is that the stitch is there and it's holding the pocket back so that it won't get caught in that zipper. If you look at the front of the zipper, none of those stitch lines are showing. They're all happening on that zipper allowance on the inside. And the only way anyone would ever see them would be is if you opened your zipper and flipped it out, which I'm going to show you right now. There it is. No one will ever see that, but it is doing its job of holding that pocket on the inside. Now we'll line up and pin the front and back pocket pieces together. We're going to stitch the bottom and the top of the pockets together using a straight stitch. Then we'll pin and stitch the edge of the pocket to that side front piece. Once we've completed the pocket steps on both sides, our jacket will look like this. It's getting so exciting. We've got our two lovely pockets, and now we need to add our front pieces. So bring over your front pieces, and with the jacket and the front piece laying right side up on your table, align them just like so. The notch on the front piece is going to align with the notch on the front side piece. Here's the arm side, and here is the neckline. So flip that front piece over onto the front side piece and we'll pin along this seam. Use a serger or stretch stitch and 3/8 inch seam allowance on both of these seams. Press the seams away from the center front and toward the side, and then top stitch. Now we'll attach the front yokes at this seam here. Pay close attention to which is the neck opening and which is the arm side. The top double notches go face up, and then this long slanted edge attaches to the jacket. Stitch with your stretch stitch or serger in a 3/8 inch seam allowance, then press that seam up and top stitch. Now we'll attach the front and back shoulder seams by flipping the front over onto the back, aligning at those double notches, pin and stitch. Now let's make that hem facing. Bring over all 3 of your hem facing pieces and align them at the notches. Make sure they're right sides together. Uh-oh, sad face. Let's flip that one over. And now they are all aligned correctly. Double check they're all happy, happy, and happy. Once we have all 3 pieces stitched together, we're going to finish the top edge, and you can use your serger, and I just like to lengthen my serger stitch for a finishing stitch and just stitch all the way down. You can also use a zigzag stitch on your sewing machine if you prefer. Pin the facing to the jacket, aligning the raw edges, the seams, and with right sides together. If you're making the pleated back, be sure to move those pleats out of the way. You're going to be pinning to the under panel only. Stitch with a stretch stitch or serger in a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Again, being careful that you don't stitch those pleats. You only want to stitch that under panel. The hem facing will eventually be folded up and stitched into place like that, but for now we just want to press it down. Before attaching the stand-up collar to the jacket, we need to iron that hem. Draw a line 3/4 of an inch from the edge, and then we'll fold that raw edge up to the line and press it in place. And this will give us a nice folded edge for finishing the collar later. Also remind you at this point, if you want a more stable stand-up collar, that you'll want to add some interfacing to it. If you take a look at the pictures of mine, it has some wrinkles because it's not standing up very straight. Some interfacing would make that more stable. But once you're ready, find the center point on your collar, and with right sides together, match the center point on the back of your jacket and pin the collar in place, aligning the 2 pieces at the 3/8 inch seam allowance. Stitch it in place using a stretch stitch or serger. If your fabric is unstable, add some interfacing to the wrong side of your zipper guard before the following steps. This will help keep your zipper guard out of your zipper teeth. Fold the zipper guard along the long edge with right sides together. We're going to stitch this curve that you marked from the pattern piece from the 2 raw edges over to the folded edge, and then we'll stop. We'll be using straight stitches throughout the zipper installation. I shortened my stitches on this small little seam here. And once you have it stitched, you can clip off the excess. If it's a little bulky when you turn it right side out, you can cut out some little wedges to remove some of that bulk. Just be very careful to make sure you don't clip into the stitches. After that, you'll turn it right side out and give it a press all the way down. Top stitch that curved seam, and then we will continue top stitching all the way down the folded edge. The 2 raw edges will remain open. Now we'll attach the zipper to the zipper guard. I'll first apply some wash away adhesive tape to the raw edges of the zipper guard, and then align the bottom of the zipper with the bottom of the zipper guard. And when we get to the top of the zipper, we're going to fold that excess zipper tape over the front of the zipper to get it out of the way, and then fold the zipper guard over the top of the zipper as well. It's okay if the excess zipper tape is folded away from the teeth and sticks out of the zipper guard a little bit. You just don't want that excess zipper tape to get in the way of your teeth. I love using the wash away adhesive tape to install zippers, but I do find that the adhesive isn't super strong, so I still add a few clips for extra security. Now we'll baste that zipper to the zipper guard. Now we're almost ready to install that zipper to the jacket. At this point, you want to add a narrow strip of interfacing to the wrong sides of both center front edges. Mine is about a 1/2 inch thick, and I ironed it on about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Once the interfacing is in place, you're going to add some more adhesive tape